Oh boy. I'm back up another one. It's been a hot minute. The Fat Files, Modern Art is CIA propaganda. Was Jackson Pollock a Fed? Well, we'll see about the modern art, but I wouldn't be surprised if art was used for laundering money. And my mouth's not moving properly. Thank you. All right. All right. Let me check something real quick because I got to feel my one settings off. It is. Thank you for not having my lip sync on. Scuff, whatever. It is what it is. That's the option supposed to be on by default, and it's not sometimes, and whatever. It is what it is. Anyways, let's just jump into it.
Events that absolutely nobody saw coming. I think I like modern art now.
Okay.
Today we're talking about modern art and the historically supported objective fact
Now, are we talking NFTs modern art or something else?
that the CIA used it as a psychological operation to defeat communism. That's not a joke. Just so we're on the same page, I keep saying modern art, and I'm going to keep saying modern art, but more specifically, I'm talking about abstract expressionism, which is a subcategory of modern art. So for this, think of it as like the Jackson Pollock type stuff.
I don't even know who he is, to be honest. I wouldn't call that stuff art. It just looks like... I can't believe I'm going to quote this. I'm going to use a line from My Little Pony here, but... Is this art or a mistake?
You know, the stuff you look at and you're like, wow, that's worth $200 million.
How? It looks like the bench in somebody's paint shop. That doesn't look like art at all.
And I'm pretty sure my 3-year-old could do it. That type of art. And to be completely honest with you, I had every intention of this just being an 8 to 10 minute video of me talking smack about modern art and how dumb I think it is. And over the course of
You mean like the banana on the wall? I don't consider that thing art. That banana with duct tape over it, that's like, oh, you can't see me rubbing my temples. Some of the stuff that people say is art is not art. I am sorry to say. It is just, I'm not an artiste, whatever you want to say, but when I look at some of this stuff and some of the stuff that people claim is art, and it's just like, is it though? Is it really art? I don't know. Yeah, again, like I said, I'm not an artist. I can look at some of this stuff and like, yeah, that's not art. That is just something that was an accident, and you can say it's art. But that's the thing about art. Anything can be art.
Searching for this video, I have had a complete 180 change of heart. Not only do I think that modern art is pretty cool now, I was so compelled that I went out and bought my own piece of modern art. That's how great this story actually is.
But no, that one that he was just holding up looks more like a nebula kind of thing. That one's kind of cool. Like, it's got that jellyfish nebula kind of look to it. Those ones are kind of interesting for their own right. I don't know what the genre to be considered as because, again, I'm not an artist, but I pick up on patterns on shit on sometimes. Like sometimes my little old brain still works.
And we're gonna get into it right after a word from our sponsors. This video is brought
I just noticed the paddle underneath his light switch.
to you by Zaka Life Go Balm. It is a full spectrum hemp oil recovery balm that you can put on any type of athletic injury, and it's gonna work better than any other type of ointment.
Nah, I'm good.
I've been using it for over a year, and whether it's old chronic injuries flaring up again or new and exciting injuries, this stuff.
New and exciting injury. Excuse me, sir. What is your life? Because it sounds interesting. New and exciting injuries. The most newest injury I get is the odd time I'll burn my hand, and that's from soldering wires.
Helps either way. They're a small business based right here out of America. All their products are made here. So if you want to check them out, I'll have a link in the description down below. Let's get back to the video. All right, let's just take
I love how fast his ad reads are. Like they're the chef's kiss for ad reads.
from the top. World War II ends. The Cold War pretty much immediately starts, right? We split Germany right down the middle. We've got East Side versus West Side, just like Biggie and Tupac. But instead of rappers, we have communism versus capitalism. They are going to be
nice touch to have the painting in frame.
Competing at literally everything under the sun. Okay, most people think about Cold War and it's like, who has the best weapons? Who has more nuclear bombs? That's true, but there's also the culture war. America and the Soviet Union are competing against one another at absolutely everything possible. This is why we have awesome movies like Miracle, because America needs to beat the Soviet Union at hockey, and we
never heard of it. I'm sorry, there's a lot of movies I never heard of. I know people are gonna be pissed at me, but it's like, hey, I've done some reactions to some old movies. Chill. I still have a lot to go. I only have so much time because I do a day job.
need to win the most Olympic medals, and we have to have the best art and the best music and the best economy. It is a cultural war on everything. Now, some of these cultural battlefields are going to be way tougher than others. For example, the Olympics is going to be unbelievably tough because the USSR is just going to go in and give all their athletes funding, and it's going to be their full-time job to train to be an Olympic athlete 30 hours a day. On battlefields like this, there's not a lot the American government can do to ensure victory other than sit back, cross their fingers, and hope to God a genetic freak of nature like Dan Gable wanders out of a cornfield and wins Olympic gold at wrestling without giving up a...
It's always the farmers. It's always the freaking farmers that show up and are just the most OP characters in these stories.
Single point. So in things like sports, it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. It's a good old-fashioned shootout. But on other battlegrounds that have a less defined rule set, America's gonna cheat its ass off every way it can.
You're goddamn right.
And two of these extremely important yet undefined battlegrounds are art and music. And America doesn't want to go toe-to-toe with the Soviets in, say, music on a category like classical music because, well, the Soviets are going to do the same thing they do with their Olympic teams. They're going to take a one-year-old that can barely walk, shove a violin in their hands, and make them play it 18 hours a day till they become the best violinists on earth by the time they're 7. And the American government basically has a strategy of like, yeah, no thank you. We're just going to take something the Soviets don't have and make it extremely popular, and that way we win automatically. So the government, by way of the CIA, takes a bunch of money and funnels it.
That's kind of genius and busted at the same time. It's like, I'm gonna put all my stats on this one thing, and then we're gonna win. Yeah, that's a way about doing it. Yeah.
Into the jazz industry. They take the best artists like Louis Armstrong and send him on global tours all around Europe and every other country they can get into, showing off this new style of music and making it popular across the globe. And it's something that the Soviets just aren't going to be able to compete with. And jazz ends up inspiring rock and roll. And then rock and roll ends up inspiring metal. And next thing you know, it's 1991 and Metallica is having a concert in the USSR with 1.6 million people in attendance. And 3 months later, the USSR falls. Coincidence? I think not. And they had the same exact strategy with...
That's kind of wild if you think about. Freak, I have stuff from the Soviet Union. Mostly, clocks and some stuff that I found in my, treasure hunting.
Art, okay? What are the Soviets good at? They're good at the traditional stuff, that old school realism, okay? Which, let's be honest, kind of not super needed anymore ever since we invented fucking cameras. But the American government is like...
No, but there is something charming about old school realism painting. Now that we're in the era of, like, shitty AI and whatnot, old school realism is, like, now, like, it feels like a lost art. Like, there's not many people who pick it up anymore.
Like, well, what do we have that's different? Let's back that. We are going to back...
At least the ones I've seen.
Art, which is abstract expressionism, where it's literally just art for the sake of art. That's literally the definition of abstract expressionism. It's just doing it because you want to do it, because you're expressing yourself through some medium in some fashion.
That doesn't... it sounds right, but the way it executes it seems to just... I don't know how I feel about that. I get it. It is what it is, but it's just like, you're just basically, you can slap anything down at that point and say, yep, I did it. So it's art.
And that's where you get things like Jackson Pollock paintings. He's just expressing himself. Now, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal. However, it is a humongous deal because that's exactly the type of thing that you can't do over in the Soviet Union, pursuing a passion project to make a living. Now, can you be an artist? Absolutely. You could be an artist in the Soviet Union and get by just fine, provided that you're exclusively willing to paint hyper-realistic pictures of our glorious leader. And if you get bored with that, you're probably allowed to paint some pictures of our astronauts not landing on the moon first. Or maybe, if you get really bored, you could paint some muscle mommy holding a shovel, or maybe a bunch of workers returning home from the fields, but they all better have fucking smiles on their faces. So that's the angle that the US government's gonna take. They're gonna show off modern art, because modern art is nothing other than art for the sake of art. It is a symbol of freedom. It's not this tired-ass stuff the Soviets are doing, this take a picture of me, but do it with paint nonsense. All their artists over there with their techniques and their well-refined skills. No, this is America. We're gonna...
Like I said, though, there is something very nice about that realistic art style. Like, maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'm only turning this 15-minute video into already 10 minutes of me yapping, so I'm sorry.
throw shit at the wall and we're gonna win anyways. I mean paint at the canvas. We're gonna throw paint at the canvas and we're gonna win anyways.
How do you know when you're done with a painting?
How do you know when you're done making love?
Oh, when you wash your penis in the sink and go to bed.
If we can't dazzle them with
What?
our intellect, we're gonna baffle them with our bull.
What? That has nothing to do with art.
Bullshit. So that's the official plan of the U.S. government. All we have to do is make this shit popular somehow. How?
This looks like... Okay, I know it's supposed to be paint and stuff, but it kind of reminds me of, like... It looks like a wire mess. On top of, like, shredded plastic at some sort of recycling plant. I mean, I get it. Like, abstract art, you can kind of look at it. It's kind of like looking at it and your mind fills in the gaps, I guess, kind of thing. What's your imagination kind of go? Like, I see these white lines, kind of like so, like the white and yellow lines and blue lines kind of remind me of Ethernet cables.
are they gonna do it? That's easy. Copious amounts of taxpayer money. So that's what the U.S. government does. Right after World War II, 1946-ish, they just start pumping money into modern art, trying to get as many eyes on it as humanly possible.
Also, was it modern art? I don't know. There was a lot of atomic era art during the 40s and 50s, though, too. Or the atomic age art. I don't know if it was Googie or whatever. Was it Googie? I think it's Googie it was called. Googie was like an architectural style, if I recall. Not Google, not to be confused. Think the Jetsons, if you don't know what I'm talking about. The retrofuturism. Or something along those lines. There's certain art styles to me that just fascinate me, and that's like how history thought the future would be, kind of thing. So like that retrofuturism to me is fascinating because it's from an era long ago that they had no comprehension of, basically, of the computers and the technology we have nowadays and whatnot. So it is interesting to look back on that and see, okay, you can kind of check off, well, use the Jetsons for example here. Heck, even the original Star Trek you could use for an example here too. You could check off a lot of stuff that these shows that envision the future that we've accomplished now in our world. I know, I'm yapping way too much. But it's like, it's interesting, some of the stuff that art can bring.
And making it seem as cool as possible. And it was not well received, pretty much by anybody. Even the art community was divided. Half the art community hated this stuff, okay? They felt like it undermined the rest of art, which makes sense, right? You spent your whole life developing this skill set, you make beautiful paintings, and then out of nowhere, here comes this Jackson Pollock guy in his drip phase, and he's just fucking overhanding paint at a canvas, not even bothering to pick the dead flies up out of it, and all of a sudden he's more famous than you are. It's absurd. And that's just the criticism they're getting from their own.
That's because it seemed like the guy was fucking crazy, the way he was painting. Again, I don't know. I'm not an artist. I haven't been for a while. Everything I used to do was either hand-drawn by with pencil and paper, or I did it with some cell shading with vectors back in the day. Nowadays, I don't do much art at all. I don't have an old computer to run my art programs because I would have to use an old machine.
Community. Once the church-going, more conservative crowd gets a hold of this shit, they lose their mind. They fucking hate it.
One of the many tools of the devil.
Because you gotta realize from this, like, church-going conservative viewpoint, the majority of artists, generally speaking, have always been more left-leaning, which is completely fine. But in this instance, the majority of these abstract expressionist artists that are blowing up are, like, borderline communist sympathizers, or some of them are even self-proclaimed communists. I mean,
Jeez.
Jackson Pollock worked on a May Day float depicting the workers overthrowing Wall Street. Like, they have some
Jeez.
pretty controversial political opinions. So, from the perspective of this church-going conservative, it is literally a bunch of commies trying to destroy art. And they're using our tax dollars to do it. We can't allow this to happen. It's a slippery slope. First you let them call this art, then they're going to be having concerts called Woodstock and putting flowers in their hair and smoking weed and having unprotected sex, and then Forrest Gump's girlfriend's going to get AIDS. It's going to ruin the...
Wait. What? I haven't seen Forrest Gump since I was like a kid, so... What? Is that the premise of the movie? Is that how this all went down?
entire world. Okay, to be fair, they weren't actually worried about Jenny, but there was a bunch of conspiracy theories going around in the entire world. Okay, to be fair, they weren't actually worried about Jenny.
Stupid is, stupid does, Jenny. Oh my god.
But there was a bunch of conspiracy theories going around, and one of the biggest ones was that because a lot of the artists doing this type of art were communist sympathizers, is that this weird abstract art form was some way for them to convey secret messages back to the Soviet Union. Maybe these were like maps of secret US military installations, and they were all spies gathering intel, and this is how they shared it back to the USSR. Absolutely no merit to it whatsoever, but those were the types of things that people were saying. So due to the pretty violent backlash from all
One art, okay, no one's gonna know what the hell I'm talking about probably. One art I learned about from a Super Nintendo game, I shit you not, this is being out there, is fractals. I don't know why. It's one of those things that's kind of fascinating. I don't know if it's completely math generated or what. But there's the one game on the Super Nintendo where there's the computer in-game. You can actually make it render fractals. Now I don't know if it's pre-programmed, like a predetermined like sprite that it's showing up, or if it's if the developers were actually bored and decided to make it. Hey, let's see if the Super Nintendo can make fractals. Because this is one of those weird things. I know it's I think it's completely math based. So I don't know. It's a neat little thing.
All directions, the US government has to abandon this project and quit putting money into it almost immediately. So now the US government is in this situation where they have something that they want to do, but literally none of their constituents want them to do it. So clearly, they're not gonna do it.
Bullshit.
Video's over. That's it. The end. No, I'm just fucking kidding. Obviously, they're gonna use the CIA and do it anyways, and then just not tell anybody about it. That's just how the government gets down, apparently. So in 1950, the CIA helps fund and set up this new organization called the CCF, the Congress for Cultural Freedom. And this isn't just for art. This is going to be a gigantic shell corporation that the government pumps money into to attack everything communist in culture. This is going to be an anti-communist propaganda-making machine. At its peak, the CCF operated in over 35 different countries. They owned and published...
I thought the art they pumped out during the World Wars was more of an anti-communist machine. But hey, I don't know.
Published over 30 different magazines. They owned entire news outlets. They're promoting anti-communist books, music, art, intellectuals, anything they can do to fight the communist ideology, they're doing, and they're funneling it all through the CCF. And this was deemed so successful overall that the CIA website actually says, and I quote, "The Congress for Cultural Freedom is widely considered one of the CIA's most daring and effective Cold War covert operations." So the CCF is huge, but...
It is weird how much stuff is just hidden basically in plain sight with a different name. And it just works.
On art, and art has a unique issue in that modern art is already deemed super controversial, so they don't want the CCF to come out and support it directly, so they have to figure out a way to support it indirectly. So the CIA goes out and they're like, okay, well, we're going to get all these
slide you over slightly, sorry guys.
Unfortunately, most of them didn't want to work with the CIA because it's, well, A, they're a bureaucratic nightmare, and B, most of them didn't like modern art. So at this point, the CIA is like, fuck it, we'll just make our own art foundation. So they go and they approach like a bunch of super wealthy people in New York City, and they're like, hey, start up an art foundation, we'll do all the work, we'll do all the paperwork, we're just gonna funnel a bunch of money and art through this foundation. I'm sure you'll end up getting like tax write-offs or something. So all the rich people are like, dope, absolutely, go ahead. And they do this like 50 times. They amass a gigantic network of phony art foundations where they use that to just funnel money directly into modern art. Okay, they're funding the artists, they're giving away rewards, they're...
That modern art is hideous, though.
Buying the artwork, they're donating it. Then they go to the museums and they get the museum...
It would make some pretty cool carpeting. It does remind me of the carpeting we used to see in like the theaters and stuff. Oddly enough,
comes in on it. Now the museum,
the 90s carpeting,
showing modern art more than anything else, inflating its popularity. But that's not where it stops, because now the CCF can get involved. Now that it's like 2 to 3 degrees removed, we're going to bring the CCF in with their 20 magazines and their news outlets, and we're going to have the magazines start publishing articles about all these modern artists and how great all this art is. And then, if any art critics want to have their opinions published in any of these 20 magazines or covered by the news, they better have the right fucking opinion about modern art.
They rigged the game. Huh. That explains a lot about art now. Jeez.
So the CIA forces this into the mainstream, and it's everywhere in all the media all the time, and everybody sees it. And this is like the peer pressure effect, right? You see this in all the magazines, all the art critics love it. Eventually you're like, shit, am I the only person that thinks this is dumb? If everybody else likes it, I don't want to be the only uncultured swine that looks at something that I think my 3-year-old can do and like doesn't understand the deeper meaning. So I'm just gonna lie and pretend and say that I like it too, just so I'm part of the cool kid group, so I'm deep and thoughtful.
I don't know if this is brilliant or if it's just like the CIA basically turned everyone in the art world into sheep. Interesting. Interesting. That herd mentality or whatever you call it. Like, don't get me wrong, like I can look at this stuff too and be like, is it art? Again, I don't know. I'm too stupid. I'll admit that. Like, I'm not an artist.
Sophisticated. So people started to like modern art. It's like candy corn, okay? I know that candy corn tastes like shit.
Candy corn doesn't taste like shit. Then again, I don't know if candy corn is different in the United States than it is over here in Canada. Like, I know for a fact that the Hershey's chocolate bars in Canada are completely different than the ones in the United States. Completely different taste and texture and everything, basically. Why? Because I work near the border. I know things. Candy corn? Not great, not terrible. Depends how fresh it is. Like most candy.
Never met a single person in my entire life that actually liked candy corn. Yet, somehow, some way,
I like candy corn.
every October, it's absolutely everywhere. It's got the best marketing on the planet for no apparent reason. I don't even know what company makes candy.
Are you sure there's not another operation behind candy corn though that's there? Just saying, like, it's a high probability if nobody really likes it. So, okay, I can't say me because I'm weird. I like a lot of stuff that nobody likes because I'm just fucking weird, I guess. I like the old tiny foods, so I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of these candy corporations are, like, government-funded secrecy things for, like, you know, something else that's not entirely just candy about candy.
Corn, yet it's everywhere all the time for the entire month of October. Fuck, candy corn's got to be a psyop too. It's got to be like nuclear waste. That's how the government gets rid of it.
Are you gonna do a video on it? Please tell me you're gonna do a video on the candy corn.
I have no idea. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting
Now, I can't prove the candy corn is a psyop. Yet, I'm gonna look into it. I'm
Yes, yes, yes!
upset about this now. But we do know for a fact
I kinda want some candy corn now to eat, even if it is potentially nuclear waste, as he said. Huh. Does it glow in the dark? I never checked, because as, fun fact, peanut butter has slight luminous properties to it that it has a slight glow in the dark effect when exposed to, UV blacklight. There's your fun fact for today. Does candy corn glow in the dark? I don't know. Now I want to try.
that modern art was a psyop, or at least its rise to fame was a psyop. And we know this because
I almost feel like candy corn is like derived. And then I'm thinking about it. Thanks, electrician. About it almost seems like a marshmallow that's gone stale, but then it's gone double stale. Is what candy corn kind of is like. It's still soft enough to eat, but it's just like, yeah.
in 1966, the New York Times had found out that the CIA helped make the CCF, and they ran it as a story. Now, they only knew about the CCF. They didn't know about all the other extra stuff that they did in the art community with the founding of all these different shell art foundations. That didn't come out until the 1990s. But it did get the ball rolling for a bunch of conspiracies, because now the art community is super skeptical of abstract expressionism. Now, it just didn't make sense from their point of view. You know, usually, typically speaking, it's almost common knowledge that most artists don't
Now, abstract art, I would have expected to come out in the 60s during the hippie times. Let me fix my model. Like, it seems like it would have fit in perfectly during the 60s just because of all of the magical substances that were being consumed during that era. So, I figured it naturally would have been a byproduct of that era. But people have been consuming that stuff or more wackier stuff earlier than that, as seen by the original Coca-Cola and whatnot. And now, don't get me started on some of the quackery that was during the early 1900s. Looking at you, Radithor water, which was radium-laced water. Yeah, that was a thing. Don't believe me? Look it up. There was a lot of nuclear quackery back in the day, but there was also just a lot of quackery and scam. You know what? Now I'm looking at it, nothing's changed since like the 1920s, basically the early 1900s, and now it's just the scams have gotten a little bit more elaborate.
Get super famous until after
The snake
they
oil.
die. Yet somehow all the major abstract expressionists, Jackson Pollock, de Kooning, Rothko, these guys were all superstars.
They all look fucking insane though. Like, Jackson at the top there looks like he's been drinking the paint the way he's holding that can like a coffee mug. Every single one of them's also got smokes on them, but again, that was just the norm back then too. Bottom dude looks like he's on something too.
During their lifetime, they had multiple page spreads in magazines. They were making tons of money. They were rich. They were famous. It just made zero sense, historically speaking. Because of this, a lot of people in the art community thought for sure the government had to be behind it. In 1974, famous art critic Max Kuzlov said that it was, quote, a benevolent form of propaganda. And here's the kicker with this. We don't know to what degree the artists that benefited the most from this actually knew that they were being used by the CIA, because as far as they probably knew, they just received a bunch of money from some art foundation owned by some rich guy. They didn't know that that rich guy was actually working with the CIA. On the flip side of that, maybe they did know the entire time, and some people cite the fact that Jackson Pollock later in his life denounced communism as evidence of that. However, in my personal opinion, I don't really buy it. I think these guys had no clue, and I think that Jackson Pollock denounced communism later.
I think these three guys, I think those guys were just space cadets in all silliness, that's what they word it. Like I said, like, people did a lot of stuff back in those days. So I would not be surprised if these paintings were just from, like, visions that some of these people were having, so it just came out that way. Then again, I wonder if you're angry and you just throw paint at a canvas if it's therapeutic. Like, I'm just curious now. Like, it's not, I don't consider maybe not art, but is it a stress reliever? Does it make you feel good just to throw paint out of frustration at something? Because, again, that's an expression being literally raw made kind of thing on the spot. I don't know. It's interesting in a way, because, again, it's just...
in life because he got famous and rich as fuck. I mean, the dude was selling paintings for $8,000, which if you adjust for inflation is like 95 grand, okay? He had a lot of money, and let's just call a spade a spade. Every young college kid wants to share the wealth, and then they get a little bit older, and it becomes their wealth that needs to get shared, and then their opinions change. Now, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. However, I hope I'm right for a couple of reasons. One, I personally just find it funny that the US government was using unwitting communist sympathizers to fight against communism by showing off all the freedoms they have, because
that sounds on brand for how the government would have operated back then.
they didn't live under communism. To me, that's art. And B, and also another reason that I think I'm correct, is that I think the CIA knew that this art couldn't be propaganda. I mean, they were going to use it as propaganda, and they knew that, but it was very important with the creation of the art that the artist had no idea that it was being used for propaganda.
Yeah, because you want your spy or your mole, whatever, or whoever you're puppeteering to be completely unaware. So if something does happen, nobody's quote unquote nobody's liable, or quote unquote there. If your dudes are doing their thing without realizing it, then they don't know anything. So if something ever got caught or whatever, or interrogated or whatever reasons, I'm saying that like past tense because this is the Cold War. It's also like a failsafe, because if they're not an agent, they don't know anything. All they're gonna be able to know is, hey, I paint. That's all I do. And maybe I do drinking stuff and smoke my cigarettes, etc., etc. And then I throw paint at the canvas, so I don't know.
Propaganda. It needed to be a true, authentic expression of that person, because that's what made this art so effective, is that we were showing off freedom, the freedom of self-expression. That's what abstract expressionism is all about.
Oh my god, I get it.
So if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, what I'm trying to tell you is that when most people think of the Cold War, they think of an arms race between America and the Soviet Union.
Well, to be fair, that's how we've been taught in school. We weren't taught anything about the propaganda side of things in school. We were just taught about the military side of things for the most part in history class in school. And we didn't even get to cover a ton of stuff because there was so much we had to cover in history classes that we couldn't cover it all.
Who can have the most nukes? Who can have the most fighter jets? Who can come up with the best, most creative, efficient way to kill the enemy? But at the end of the day, that was a moot point from the get-go because there was always mutually assured destruction
Good old MAD.
between America and the USSR should it devolve to a hot conflict. And what actually won the Cold War was the culture war. Because when it came time for the USSR to fall in 1991, they didn't want to drag America down with them because everybody in the Soviet Union was wearing blue jeans, drinking Pepsi, listening to Metallica, and Gorbachev himself was doing fucking Pizza Hut commercials.
Это Горбачев.
They didn't want to destroy America because they wanted to be like America, or at the very least, they recognized the fact that the world was a better place with America in it. The Cold War wasn't won by having the most nuclear warheads. It wasn't won by putting a man on the moon first. It was won with blue jeans, junk food, music, and art. And to quote JFK, art is not a form of propaganda. It is a form of truth. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack, bang, out.
Now, fun fact for those of you, if you guys don't know, link for the original video will be down below for the Fat Electrician, but on his merch note, do know a lot of his stuff is timed drops, so you only have, like, say, a month, maybe two, to grab it. So if you see this, if you want something you want from him, go get it. That's all I can really say. I missed out. I don't want you guys to miss out. Anyways, that was fun. That's another one from me, from the Fat Electrician, and we will catch you on the next one. I don't even know what to say about this art program now, so bye.